Well, as we kick off the 9 o'clock hour from a beautiful sun-drenched Kauffman Stadium, we are happy to welcome on and say good morning on opening day to owner John Sherman, CEO of the Kansas City Royals, is here. Good morning. Thanks for being
Pete.
here, John.
Thank you. It's not always no guarantees in Kansas City that the weather would be like this, but this is awesome.
Well, we've been here now the last few years, and we've certainly had some chilly 30-degree mornings on these days the last couple of years, right?
Certainly, no guarantees.
No guarantees.
Sure. Late March, early April, no guarantees.
But as I said to you before we started here, the weather is much less relevant when you've got a winning baseball team.
That's true.
And that's what you've got right now. So just from a business standpoint, having this team for the last now almost over 5 years, November of 2019, you become the majority owner. And, of course, then COVID hits. Right. There's a work stoppage coming out of COVID, couple of years of baseball. How are you feeling right now about, this team, this franchise, and what its future holds for Kansas City?
Well, I feel good. We have great leadership in our baseball operations, J.J. Piccolo, Matt Quattraro. I feel great about the talent that we have. But, it's and we had a historic turnaround, right? So let's not – I think we should be recognized for that. But, we're 0-0 today. Today is a great day. It's be a big celebration of our city, but it's really the one of 162, right? So you got to start all over, and I think it's the mindset of this team. I would tell you that from being in Arizona in spring training, if I think about a year ago, it was a team that was hopeful. It could turn things around and have a shot at the postseason. I think now they expect to be in the postseason. Again, got to stay healthy. But we made ourselves better in the offseason. In addition to that, the maturation of our young core, that should be helpful too. But our bullpen in particular, I think, will be a lot better. And then Jonathan India at the top of the lineup, that's a difference maker from my perspective. Yeah.
Now, of course, being the owner of this team, you look at it and you got the baseball side of it. You also have the business side of it. That's certainly gotten a lot of attention, especially over the last few days. When you look at the conversation right now, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm looking at a lot of options here for this team. 119th and Null comes up as a big rumor this week. Is that an option that you are exploring right now, that location in particular?
First of all, there is a lot of attention, and I know a lot of people want to talk about this, and I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for the passion. Fandom is a funny thing, right? That's why these businesses are valuable because, like it or not, the fans are passionate, and you're going to hear from them in good times and bad. So I appreciate, what we're hearing from certain people. But the overwhelming message to me really is about what I hear more than anything is really about excitement about this team. That said, I can't respond out of respect for the process and the people that are potential partners. Really can't respond to speculation like that. But I would tell you this: it's a complicated process. It is a generational decision. We're going to be very, very strategic about it. I want to talk about this as much as anybody else, right? But there is work to do before we get to that point. And when we get to that point, we look forward to sharing as much as we can.
Now, you've shared a timeline of hopefully mid-year, right, to have your decision made on where you want to be. Is that a self-imposed timeline, or are there other reasons that timeline exists?
It's certainly our objective, but there's also I think when Kansas got into the mix here after the vote, they have a June 30 deadline for that star bond legislation. Yes. So that's actually helped us create a deadline. But that's certainly an objective, and it's an objective for our potential partners as well.
So you've always talked a lot about how you see the value in baseball being downtown. I mean, you've been very public about that. Obviously, there's a lot of these locations that are not in your traditional downtown setting. So do you feel differently about how the business side of this can work, where that is less important to you than maybe it was a year and a half ago?
I think rather than just say downtown, I would say in a higher density area than where we are today. Look, this stadium, I was out here yesterday for that. This is a beautiful stadium, and it looks gorgeous today, right?
Yeah.
But on a long-term basis, this is not, we're not competitive. It's a 60-year-old building at the end of the. So we need a new building or a modern building, right? But more important than the building itself is where we are, and it's really more about being in a higher density area, whether it's urban or close in suburban, where we can bring energy and vibrancy around the ballpark and create economic activity, not just the 81 nights a year but 365 days a year. It's another reason we're excited about it. Obviously, from a business perspective, it's really strategic that we identify our long-term home. But this is big economic development for Kansas City and the region. So this should be very, very exciting for the community. And I'll be happy when the day when we can announce that decision and try to rally everybody behind wherever we go.
And wherever you go, I know the specifics, locations right now are something you want to respect the process on. But from the listener perspective, the voter perspective, do you feel like you need to go back to the voters for whatever your next move is? Or do you say, you know what, we've got enough options on the table with STAR bonds or TIF money that, we can do this without the voter? And it's not a disrespectful thing, but we just think the business opportunities are there where we don't need the voter to go to the ballot box anymore for this.
Well, I think it depends. There are in some of these situations we will have to go back to the voter, and some of them we won't. Mm-hmm. But I think we evaluate that whole package, and we'll make a decision whether or not to go back to the voter. But in certainly, well, I would say in at least one of our options, there would be a public vote requirement.
There would be. Okay. Yeah. So from that perspective, is that something that you want to avoid, or are you kind of like, if that's the best option, we'll happily go back to the voter and pitch them on why this idea is better than last year's idea?
Well, I would say we're willing to do that. Mm-hmm. I think, again, I think we look at the whole package, right?
Yeah.
I think, but certainly, we did that, and I respect the results of that and the process. We could have done some things better, but we got options on both sides of that question.
How much does having a team that's having success now on the field help you in these conversations with both sides of the state line? Is that beneficial, and if so, how much?
It shouldn't be that important because this is so strategic, but
yeah,
look, people like.
Let's be honest, sports are
winning,
passion.
Yeah, winning is what
Yes.
this business is about. It makes everybody feel better, and when you win on the field, it kind of lifts the boats of all the other things you do. So it is important. I think about this is a 50-year decision. You can't always control whether you're having a good year. We're fortunate right now to have a superstar like Bobby Witt and have the ability to build around him. I think this is a special group, so we're fortunate that we have a team that is certainly capable of winning right now.
And that's something that I think, you look at the Chiefs. I know that, they've obviously leveraged their winning or want to leverage their winning from a business perspective. Do you view whatever the future is for the Royals and the stadium and the project, you've talked about business development, concerts, other events, is that a part of your business plan for Kansas City?
Absolutely. More concerts in the sports building itself. I would expect that wherever we go, we might have a smaller entertainment venue as well. That would be, not a lot of acts can fill up a 40,000
Yes.
or a 65. The sweet spot is really more in that 4,000 to 7,000. So I would expect we'd have a ancillary entertainment venue as well.
And when you put something like that together, how much the business's revenues are based on baseball versus ancillary, apartments, restaurants, other events? Is it a 50-50? Is it 60? What makes it beneficial?
Well, I think the revenues will be more from baseball.
Okay.
But that incremental business that you have, and we'll have partners in those. We're not in the real estate business. We're going to be, but we'll have partners with expertise that we'll be working with. But if you look at, a good example might be Atlanta. I think their numbers are actually public because they're part of, they spun the Atlanta Braves holding company out.
That's right. They're publicly traded
out of Liberty.
now, right?
Was it Liberty that owns them? But anyway, those numbers are public, so it might be interesting to look at that. I think their mix, certainly when they put the new building in, they grew their revenues on the stadium side. But that's a profitable activity in the Battery in Atlanta for the Atlanta Braves.
What about just the economics of baseball right now? I mean, you and I have talked about this, but the reality is you got the Dodgers. You guys have a healthy payroll for your market size, but the Dodgers are what, 4x you, the Yankees, the Red Sox. I know this helps you close the gap, but from an owner's perspective, how much conversation is there for protecting the sport, like the NFL does a very good job of, trying to create a lot of competition regardless of market size?
Right.
How much conversation has there been around any of that, or is the union just too strong on that front?
Well, I would say this: there is a lot of discussion about competitive balance, right? Because we're never going to use the current economic system as an excuse. We think we can compete in the AL Central, and we think we can win this division. Then we'll take our chances. If we get a chance to play the Dodgers in a 7-game series, we'll take our chances, right? But I also think that long term, there's a lot going on in the business of baseball, right? The media business. I think ultimately baseball will benefit from a more centralized media approach and maybe a different approach to revenue sharing there that will help competitive balance. And then, we certainly want to talk to the players about a better partnership than we have today.
And when's the next opportunity for that?
Well, the CBA, the current collective bargaining agreement, runs through the end of 2026. So this year and next. So after the 26th season, we'll have the opportunity to talk to the players. And again, we want to grow this game together with them, and they're really they're the entertainment. Like I said, no one comes here to see the owner. They come to see the players. You come to see me, right?
Well, I was going to say, trust me, our audience is dying to hear from you, but I understand.
I get it, but they're the game. They are the entertainment, right? So we want a partnership with them. We want to find a way where we're in this thing together and we grow the game together, similarly to what I think the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, more of a rev share with the players.
Royals CEO John Sherman's here on KCMO. So what about, do the owners play a role in that? Because with this sport, everyone's got their own regional deal, and obviously based on population, some will be larger than others. Is there something where the owners need to also say, hey, we've got to make this thing more equitable, as much as that's maybe the wrong word? Is there a way for them to also step in and do more revenue sharing than what currently exists?
Yeah, the owners, we have to be together on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that process is probably as important as the external process with the Players Association.
Yeah. So what about, when you look at the future of this team and where it's at right now? You've locked in Bobby Witt. That's obviously something that was critical for you last year. What else do you look at and say, hey, how we stay competitive is by locking up our young stars at maybe better deals than what they would get on the open market? What does that look like for the next 5 years and trying to keep, hopefully, a good core together?
Well, it's always, you have a little bit of an advantage when you're extending a player, right? Because you're the only team that can negotiate with them. And with Bobby, it was a great process, right? And locking up generational talent like that's incredibly difficult. So that was a great thing for us, but it was a result of a relationship, two parties that wanted to make something happen. So that's part of it, right? It's do we extend our own? We grow from within, and then the free agent market and the trade market, and we need all of those. But I would tell you the free agent market's probably the most expensive. We had to go to the free agent market last year and this year a little bit because our farm system wasn't where we wanted it to be, but it's coming. Everybody wanted to talk about Jack Caglione a couple weeks ago during spring training. He's down. He'll be in Quad City or in Northwest Arkansas. But yeah, you have to. Players come from the international business, from the draft, and obviously the draft is the most cost-effective way. If you can hit that right, you have the player for 6 years at least. In fact, Bobby would be in the first year of arbitration. This is the first year what would have been his arbitration year, so that's really good for us in that we got cost certainty. And again, this era right here is important to surround him with talent.
Last thing for you, John Sherman, do you look at this season and say to yourself, if we're not in the postseason, that will be a disappointing year?
I expect, but more importantly, the guys downstairs in the clubhouse, they expect to be in the postseason, and that's more important than what I think about it.
Yeah, well, hey, like you said, I know you don't want to be the center, but with everything going on right now, you're the center of the conversation, so we appreciate you being here on KCMO.
Thank you, Pete.
You bet. That is
our
Royal
Hopefully
CEO.
We'll get one today from the Guardian.
Hey, that would be great. That would be great. First pitch at 3:10 out at the K. He is Royal CEO John Sherman on KCMO 95.7 FM.